They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but what if Foresight was an app on your phone, right next to the weather widget and your daily doom scroll? Welcome to What If Horizons, the podcast that asks the impossible, then refuses to apologize for the answers. Imagine this. You wake up, grab your coffee, and before brushing your teeth, you check a neat little screen that says, "Don't go outside today. You'll meet your ex and trip over a chihuahua." So you stay home. Crisis averted. But hold on. Now you never get to fall into the arms of your next soulmate who was walking right behind that ankle-biting beast. Welcome to the butterfly effect, now sponsored by clairvoyance. If humanity suddenly developed the ability to see the future, not guess, not forecast, but see it, with all the cinematic clarity of an IMAX film and the emotional trauma of a soap opera season finale, we would be in for either the greatest leap forward since the invention of sliced bread, or a collective existential breakdown that would make the 2008 financial crash look like a group hug. Let's begin with the question of access. Who gets to see the future? Everyone. Just governments? Billionaires with forehead implants and suspiciously good Wi-Fi? Or is it like a subscription service where you get a free 7-day trial, but then have to sell your soul, or at least your browser history, for full access? Let's say it's universal. Everyone, from the Pope to the guy yelling at pigeons in the park, can peek into what's coming. You'd think world peace would be next on the list, right? Wrong. First comes sheer panic. Stock markets would collapse faster than a toddler with a popsicle. Every prediction of a dip would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Entire economies would evaporate overnight as people preemptively jump ship before the leak even happens. Who needs analysts when you've got tomorrow's headlines baked into today's decisions? Relationships? Toast. Imagine every Tinder date now comes with a flash forward to your second fight over laundry and that awkward family dinner in 2028 where someone brings up NFTs. Why invest in love when you already know it ends with someone crying in a parking lot next to a broken waffle maker? But it gets darker. What about death? You could know when and how. Some would choose to live it up, max out credit cards, say things they'd regret if they had time left to regret them. Others would become obsessed, trying to change it, dodging every banana peel and refusing to use microwaves. Insurance companies would implode. Why insure what you know is doomed? And then, of course, there's the paradox of knowledge. What happens when you see a future and act to change it? Does the vision vanish like a deleted email? Or does it split reality into one where you died tragically in a bowling accident and one where you avoided it by simply never trying to impress your coworkers again? That's just the individual level. Now zoom out. Picture global politics. Every major decision comes with a pre-screening. Leaders don't argue over ideology anymore. They just binge-watch the next decade. A war that would kill millions? Skip it. But then the next generation grows up in total peace, and they become unbearably smug, start blogging about how they ended conflict by eating organic granola and chanting in unison. And religion? Oh boy. Prophecy becomes less metaphor and more spoiler alert. Imagine a priest trying to deliver a sermon while half the congregation is fact-checking the apocalypse on their 4Vision apps. Cults would skyrocket. Someone would eventually claim to be the chosen one, just because their forecast says they'll go viral at age 43 after an unfortunate fall into a swimming pool full of whipped cream. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because the real danger isn't just seeing the future, it's believing it. Trusting that what we see is inevitable, that it's all predestined, that no matter what you do, you're just playing a part in a script already written by some invisible hand with a flair for melodrama. And what does that do to free will? To ambition? To hope? So you can see the future. Great. But now what? Do you go to work knowing that your boss is about to get caught in a scandal involving embezzled office snacks and suspiciously expensive pens? Or do you call in sick because, according to your vision, you're getting fired next Tuesday anyway and frankly, you've always wanted to see what daytime soap operas look like without judgment? This new future vision era doesn't just disrupt lives. It annihilates the very foundation of decision-making. Remember when people used to agonize over whether to break up, take a new job, or buy avocado toast instead of saving for a house? Now they just check the Foresight feed. Oh, I'm unhappy in 6 years because I chose the blue car? I guess Reddit is. Decision paralysis becomes a global epidemic. Every moment is a new fork in the road, and everyone's carrying a GPS that screams rerouting every 5 seconds. What used to be spontaneous, adventure, risk, even the occasional delicious mistake, is now filtered through the lens of predetermined outcomes. Nobody travels just to explore anymore. They already know the hotel room has bedbugs, and that weird guy at the airport bar will ask for crypto advice. And forget innovation. Why invent when you can see what will be invented? The future is already a spoiler, and nothing kills human creativity faster than the knowledge that someone else already did it better. Mozart might not have composed if he could have heard Taylor Swift's 10-minute version of Heartbreak 3 centuries early. Education gets weirder. Kids grow up not learning to think, but to memorize the timelines. Why study calculus when you know the only time you'll use math is to calculate the tip for your holographic food truck in 2043? Why bother with philosophy when every answer has already been scrolled through in the temporal feed? Meanwhile, crime takes a bizarre turn. With future vision, people commit pre-crime defense. I only stole that loaf of bread because I saw in 3 days I'd be falsely accused of theft anyway. Courts are overloaded with cases of, I only did it because I saw it would happen. The legal system collapses into a metaphysical debate club where the only defense is existential dread. And surveillance? Oh, it gets juicy. Governments now demand access to public future feeds. National security departments have clairvoyance on payroll. Terrorist plots are foiled before they begin. Great, right? Except now the paranoia level is dialed up to 11. Every sneeze on a subway is flagged as a potential bioweapon event because someone saw a vague flash of a hospital in 2071. Of course, corporations get in on the action too. Marketing becomes psychotic. You thought targeted ads were invasive before? Now your toaster knows you're about to break up with your partner and starts suggesting comfort food and moving boxes. And don't even think about loyalty programs. The algorithm already knows you'll switch to a competitor next March, so your coffee shop punishes you in advance with watery lattes and passive-aggressive foam art. Dating apps? An absolute nightmare. They now come with trajectory previews. Swipe right, and you instantly see your fourth fight about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Swipe left, and you see a different life where you both die alone, but at least have matching book collections. Some people rebel, of course. No future for me, they say. They form unplugged communes in the woods, growing kale and refusing to look at anything but sundials. They become the Luddites of time, preaching about the virtue of uncertainty while secretly sneaking peeks into the next full moon's weather forecast. Then come the prophets, self-proclaimed messiahs who claim their visions are more accurate, more authentic, more dramatic. Spoiler alert, most of them are just people who watched too many reboots of Nostradamus on late-night television and now think the world ends every Tuesday. But a few gain followers. Cults flourish. Humanity's old addiction to believing someone else knows what's coming is reborn, only now with fewer robes and more hashtags. It all becomes a blur, a society trying to micromanage every heartbeat, every cough, every chance encounter. And what does that do to love, to mystery, to the thrill of not knowing? Because here's the kicker. Even if the future is visible, it doesn't mean it's changeable. But humans, being stubborn bags of ambition and insecurity, try to bend the inevitable anyway. They create software to manipulate visions, alternate timelines, plausibility overlays, basically time deepfakes. Now nobody knows if what they're seeing is real or just someone else's Photoshopped destiny. Chaos ensues. And in all this, one quiet question grows louder. If everything is known, what's the point of living? Imagine waking up one morning, staring at the ceiling, and thinking, why even get out of bed? I already know how today ends. That's not depression, that's foresight fatigue. And it's everywhere. People start skipping life like they skip commercials. First dates are canceled because one glance into the future shows a passive-aggressive breakup at a Thai restaurant 3 months in. Marriages dwindle because why say, I do, when you know you'll one day scream, I don't over a dishwasher? Free will becomes an endangered species. The philosophers come out of hiding, giddy with relevance, scribbling furiously on their iPads, which auto-correct determinism to detention, oddly appropriate. Can you still have choice if you've seen all the roads ahead and none of them are shortcuts to happiness? We've all been trained, since childhood, to value the power of decision. Choose your own adventure, they said. But now, the adventure is already printed on the last page. We've just been handed the spoiler. So what do humans do in classic fashion? We rebel. Some start lying to the vision tech. Fake thoughts, decoy dreams, mental spam. Others install illegal mind jammers, scrambling their future feed like it's cable TV in the 90s. The rich take it even further, hiring vision consultants to help them shape the future they want to see. It's like hiring a publicist for your destiny. And because this is humanity we're talking about, someone weaponizes it. Governments build classified AI that predicts global conflict scenarios, running endless simulations until one version of Earth makes it past 2150 without boiling. Meanwhile, citizens become pawns in a predictive game of chess no one understands, where World War III might be avoided just by convincing one man in Toledo not to buy a motorcycle in 2032. Don't ask why. The math checks out. On the cultural front, everything becomes a rerun. Hollywood collapses under the weight of pre-watched movies. No one wants to see the ending if they already streamed it from their own cerebral cortex. Novelists quit. Why write? They cry. The plot twist was already trending last week. The news dies. Headlines now begin with "as foreseen," and everyone just nods like weathered fortune cookies. Journalism becomes timekeeping. And conspiracy theories? Oh, they flourish. Because now that people can see the future, they're convinced everyone else is lying about it. Nothing fuels paranoia like a bad prophecy. Religions fragment. Faith struggles in a world where divine mystery has been replaced by predictive software. Some say the visions are the voice of a higher being. Others say it's just another app designed by teenagers in Estonia with too much Red Bull and not enough ethics. New cults worship algorithms. Sermons are patch notes. But amid the chaos, there are a few who thrive. The gamblers, the traders, the chaos surfers. These people don't fear the future. They ride it like a roller coaster with no seatbelt and 3 loops. Betting markets explode. People gamble not on what will happen, but how close their personal predictions were to the real ones. It's betting on the inevitability of things, which is somehow even more depressing than blackjack. Then there's the black market for vision manipulation. Want to erase that embarrassing future where you bomb your TED Talk and accidentally start a meme war? For the right price, a neural hacker can wipe it clean. Consequences be damned. And just when we think things couldn't get stranger, a new generation is born. Kids who've never known a life without vision. They're raised with certainty. Their lullabies are forecasts. Their fairy tales end with footnotes predicting exactly how they'll one day realize Santa is a lie. But here's the thing. These kids, they're bored. Deeply, spiritually bored. Because mystery is the sugar in the cereal of life. And without it, they just eat bran flakes of certainty until their souls are constipated with monotony. So they do the unthinkable. They turn it off. One by one, they choose blindness. They abandon vision tech. They unplug. And suddenly, wonder returns. Every moment is raw, real, possibly disappointing, definitely unpredictable, and beautifully human. Because it turns out, not knowing what's coming next, that's the one surprise we're still allowed to have. The trouble with peeking into tomorrow is that today starts feeling like a rerun. And once the future becomes a rerun, the present becomes unbearable. Welcome to the era of future dissonance, a psychological pandemic with symptoms ranging from chronic déjà vu to existential constipation. People begin to question everything. If your future says you'll spill coffee on your boss next Friday, do you even bother trying to avoid it? Or do you lean into the prophecy and make it count with a caramel macchiato and a power stance? What is free will when your itinerary is already logged like a badly written sitcom script? Therapists, caught between Freud and firmware, scramble to keep up. Patients complain, "I know what's coming, but I feel nothing." It's not depression exactly. It's more like boredom at a cosmic level. The universe is an open book, and somehow, it reads like a manual for assembling flat-pack furniture. Predictable, confusing, and oddly full of screws you don't remember using. Corporations jump in with their own fix, manufactured spontaneity. You can now subscribe to unknown box services. They deliver mystery experiences straight to your door. You won't know if it's a flamenco class, a tax audit, or a goat until it arrives. All to simulate surprise. Spoiler, it usually involves goats. Romance, too, goes through a metamorphosis. Dating apps pivot to show not just potential matches, But your entire relationship arc, swipe right to see how you'll break up in Cancun during hurricane season. It's brutal. It's honest. It's capitalism with a smirk. And then come the skeptics, the Luddites of the mind, the vision deniers, people who think the future feed is rigged, that it's a corporate conspiracy, a psychological cage designed to nudge consumer behavior. They wear tinfoil hats, ironically made by the same companies they claim to mistrust. They shout on street corners, "Your destiny is being focus grouped." They might be onto something. Governments don't help. Some begin curating futures, filtering out inconvenient truths, replacing them with palatable destinies. Instead of food shortages, your vision just shows you learning to grow microgreens and become one with the compost. Dystopia, but make it edible. Meanwhile, religious leaders adapt or perish. New sects emerge, the followers of the blank scroll. They believe that true divinity lies in the unknown. Their sermons involve staring into unplugged screens and chanting maybe in 5 different languages. They're mocked, until one of their followers predicts a major tech collapse by doing absolutely nothing. Suddenly, maybe is the hottest prophecy in town. In schools, history is replaced by future studies. Children don't memorize dates, they rehearse their destinies. Timmy isn't just learning math, he's training to fail at being a hedge fund manager and then accidentally invent a new form of yogurt in 2045. Career counseling is now just fortune-telling with PowerPoint slides. But the strangest consequence of all, nostalgia becomes weaponized. People yearn for unpredictability like it was a lost lover. There's a black market for vintage uncertainty. Illegal mystery parties where no one knows what snack is being served. People pay good money to be surprised by guacamole. There are underground nightclubs where the DJ plays songs no one's heard before because they weren't on the future playlist. Philosophers publish books with no titles, no conclusions, and no indexes. They become bestsellers. One of them wins the Nobel Prize for Literature for a blank page. It's not a metaphor. It's a desperate scream. Some embrace absurdity. If everything is preordained, why not dance through it like a lunatic at a funeral? Clown suits become protest fashion. Randomness becomes rebellion. A man in Belgium starts wearing a new hat every hour. He has thousands. He becomes a cult hero, not because the future predicted it, but because it didn't. Then comes the day when someone sees a future that's wrong. Just a flicker. A birthday party that never happens. A war that doesn't start. A reunion that feels too sweet to be real. The system is questioned. The belief that every future vision is carved in granite starts to crumble. If even one detail can be false, then perhaps all of it is probabilistic fiction, elaborate forecasts designed to feel like certainty. Suddenly, the world gasps. If the future isn't fixed, then maybe, just maybe, we were never meant to know it at all. And as that suspicion spreads, a new question arises. If the future is unreliable, what else might we have misunderstood about time itself? So the world begins to doubt. And in that doubt, a renaissance is born, not of art or science or grand innovation, but of chaos, glorious and unfiltered. People start ignoring their future feeds. Some even go as far as deleting them entirely. It's considered an act of radical defiance, on par with streaking across the digital highways of destiny with nothing but curiosity and confusion to cover your shame. The markets, which had once gleamed with oracle-fed certainty, begin to spiral. Investors who once bet with confidence now tremble like they've suddenly remembered what dice are. Cryptocurrencies fluctuate not on algorithms, but on the mood of a guy named Dave who claims to have a hunch. Nobody knows who Dave is. That's the point. The entertainment industry pivots again, this time embracing unpredictability as the ultimate luxury. Reality shows are no longer scripted, or if they are, they're written by AI trained to be drunk, bitter, and allergic to formula. Viewership source. Everyone is addicted to the novelty of not knowing who will win, die, or marry a goat by episode 3. Meanwhile, science takes a philosophical turn. Quantum physicists, emboldened by uncertainty, begin to publicly mock determinism. They hold TED Talks titled, "Maybe is the New Law of Nature and Uncertainty." It's not just for dating anymore. A new academic field emerges, chaos humanities. Its leading thinker is a 13-year-old TikTok star who argues, compellingly, that randomness is love without expectations. Religions flourish and fracture. Some cling to future visions like their divine scripture. Others embrace a new theology, the Church of Glorious Surprises. Their motto? Let tomorrow slap you in the face, and thank it for the lesson. Sermons include drawing fortunes from a hat, rolling dice for moral decisions, and randomly selecting passages from ancient instruction manuals to interpret as sacred text. And then there are the opportunists, humanity's most dependable species. With the collapse of certainty, new industries bloom. Professional ruiners offer to spoil your future feed with fake data for a fee. Don't like what you see? For $49.99, we'll override it with you living on a llama farm in Peru. Sales explode. Politicians spin this as a feature, not a bug. Uncertainty is freedom, they declare. Knowing everything was tyranny. Campaigns promise nothing specific. Voters cheer. Elections are decided by a lottery, and honestly, nobody misses the debates. Turns out, watching two suits scream about tax codes when everyone already knew the outcome was not exactly riveting television. But amidst the chaos, a quiet rebellion forms. A movement of individuals who still believe in peering ahead, not to be guided, but to be amused. They treat future visions like spoilers from a bad TV show. You glance, you chuckle, and then you go back to making it up as you go. They call themselves the improvisers. Their manifesto is short. We see, we shrug, we live anyway. The improvisers spread like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone is hosting parties where people act out wildly inaccurate future forecasts. You're told you'll be a dentist in Paris? Congrats, you now spend the evening yelling molar in a fake French accent while brandishing a toothbrush. It's liberating, ridiculous, and deeply human. Of course, there's backlash. The vision industry doesn't go down quietly. Billion-dollar corporations aren't exactly thrilled to see their revenue streams replaced by interpretive dance parties and philosophical memes. They launch smear campaigns, warning people that without future feeds, society will crumble into a pudding of bad decisions and late-night impulse buys. But it's too late. Humanity, it turns out, is delightfully allergic to being told what's coming. And in the middle of this existential food fight, a quiet question begins to surface. A question whispered in cafes, painted on alley walls, and coded into obscure indie video games. If knowing the future makes us worse at living, then maybe the real question isn't what's coming, but why we're so afraid not to know. What are we really running from? The unknown or ourselves? So we come to the philosophical meat of the future sandwich. The chewy, overcooked bit everyone tries to ignore until it sticks in their teeth. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment we saw the future, we stopped really living in the present. Birthdays became checkboxes. Weddings were mere dress rehearsals for already known divorces. People cried at funerals not for the dead, but for the spoiler they had read years in advance. Every joy was shadowed by its expiration date. Every ambition, already measured, dissected, and charted. There was no such thing as hope anymore, just accuracy. And yet, even amidst this data-drenched dystopia, some strange behaviors began to emerge. People, real, messy, irrational people, started making choices against their predicted outcomes. A woman foreseen to become a billionaire launched a free soup kitchen instead. A man expected to die alone bought a cat, then two, then became TikTok's most eligible cat dad. Entire communities began gathering just to laugh at the absurdity of their fates. You think I'll be a lighthouse keeper in Bolivia? They'd say. Let's go buy a foghorn and find out. It was rebellion by randomness. This was not a glitch in the system. It was the system finally meeting its match, willpower. The human urge to flip off destiny just for fun. We don't like being told what to do. Not by our parents, not by our governments, and certainly not by prophetic apps with suspiciously cheerful fonts. So prediction became less of a roadmap, more of a dare. Then the artists arrived, as they always do, fashionably late, overdressed, and ready to set fire to convention. Musicians composed albums designed to sound better after you've lived your predicted life. Painters created portraits based on the version of you that didn't get into law school. Writers published novels where the ending was different every time you read it. Not magical, just inconsistent on purpose. Finally, literature caught up with life. In classrooms, children were no longer asked what they wanted to be when they grew up. Instead, they were asked, What ending would you refuse to accept? Students would declare, "I'll never be boring," or "I won't become someone who stops dancing at weddings." The career counselor would nod solemnly and hand them a kazoo. And in this topsy-turvy world of proud unpredictability, something even more unexpected bloomed: empathy. Turns out, when you stop fixating on your own timeline, you notice others. Really notice. Because their choices aren't just background noise anymore. They're glorious, defiant acts of self-authorship. Watching someone reject their predicted misery to build a garden, or throw a party, or adopt a hedgehog in a tutu becomes a form of heroism. Society shifts. Value is no longer tied to certainty, but to surprise. The job market adapts. Resumes include sections like things I did that no algorithm could have guessed, and moments I said no to the easy path. Interview questions go from "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" to "When was the last time you changed your mind and loved it?" And for once, therapy becomes cheaper. Why? Because when your life isn't scripted, you actually get to process it. Slowly, weirdly, honestly. Psychologists rejoice, not because people are saner, but because they're finally real. There's nothing quite as healing as admitting, "I have no idea what I'm doing," and that's the point. And so we enter a kind of golden age. Not of perfection, not of peace, but of presentness. We start making decisions like jazz musicians, listening, responding, improvising with flair. The future doesn't vanish, it just becomes what it always was. A blurry maybe, not a binding prophecy. We flirt with fate, but never commit. And as this collective shift takes hold, there is one more ripple on the horizon. A question, soft, seductive, deeply inconvenient. If unpredictability has made us more alive, then what if never seeing the future was actually the best thing that never happened? The strangest part of this whole telefuture spectacle wasn't the science. It wasn't even the creepy oracle capitalism. No, the weirdest part was how the simple act of knowing what was coming made people deeply, profoundly bored. Imagine waking up every morning knowing precisely how your day would go. Not just the meetings, but the conversations. The laughs, the awkward silences. You'd know the exact time the barista would misspell your name as Gregory, even though you're clearly named Tina. You'd know your lunch order before the craving hit. And your evening? Oh, it's reruns of your own life. Live. Now, boredom is a dangerous thing. Bored people start wars, start cults, or worse, start podcasts. The global spike in existential apathy became so severe that one company launched a subscription box called Surprise Me, which would randomly send you objects from other people's lives. A used slipper, a haiku in Japanese, a jar labeled "definitely not pickles." It was wildly popular. In desperation, some folks paid big bucks for blackout zones, areas with scrambled future vision. Step inside and suddenly, your next move became a mystery again. Marriage proposals were more thrilling. So were buffet lines. Of course, others doubled down on their fates. These were the true believers, people who tattooed their predicted life timelines on their arms and lived like GPS-guided missiles. They weren't bad people, just very punctual, and often exhausted. But the rest of us? We cracked. Not all at once. It started small. Someone ignored their predicted lunch choice. Someone else took a left turn when the future said right. Harmless at first, like dancing offbeat in a marching band. But then, like dominoes with drama degrees, the deviations cascaded. A woman destined to marry her high school sweetheart instead eloped with a mime from Venice Beach. A CEO predicted to lead a trillion-dollar merger opened a used bookshop in Iceland. People began taking joy in proving the system wrong, not just for rebellion's sake, but for curiosity. What else might I be? Naturally, this threw the system into a full-on existential meltdown. The forecasting algorithms, once smug and omniscient, started glitching. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, chance of rebellion. Apps designed to project your life began issuing vague updates like, maybe you'll cry in a forest, or, we have no idea what you're doing. Please stop. Governments, ever allergic to unpredictability, attempted regulation. No unauthorized life swerving, they warned. But try telling a billion people addicted to chaos that they can't be spontaneous anymore. You might as well outlaw sneezing. Philosophers rejoiced. Suddenly, every late-night dorm room argument became relevant again. Do we have free will? or just an aggressive user interface? Is it better to suffer surprise than live in certainty? And if Schrodinger's cat already knows whether it's alive or dead, does it even want to get out of the box? Meanwhile, future therapists faced new problems. Clients would say, "I saw my future husband, and he's fine, but I think I'm into baristas now." Or, "I know I'm supposed to win the Pulitzer, but I just want to do parkour." The profession of professional detour counseling was born. Therapists who helped you joyfully swerve off your destiny, like a soap opera stunt double. And somewhere in the middle of this chaos, something clicked. We realized that the future, that glittering beacon we used to chase like caffeine-fueled hamsters, wasn't a place to arrive. It was a story we told ourselves so we'd keep moving. And when that story became a spoiler, we had to write new chapters. We learned that not knowing wasn't failure. It was freedom. Because when everything becomes predictable, even happiness turns gray. But when the road is foggy, and your GPS says no signal, and your heart says go left, that's when life gets loud again. Messy, beautiful. Of course, seeing the future didn't just change how we lived. It fundamentally broke our sense of time. Time, before this, was a one-way street. Past behind, future ahead, present an awkward sneeze in between. But once people began observing tomorrow like checking the weather, it got weird. People didn't just live in the present anymore. They vacationed in their futures. Some moved in full-time. Time tourists became a thing. You could stroll through your 47th birthday and critique the catering in advance. Really, Brenda? Quinoa salad again. People booked honeymoons a decade early, then decided not to get married because the resort's buffet looked underwhelming. Banks began offering time-based mortgages. Pay now, live in the house you'll die in. Buy your coffin plot today and enjoy your 2083 sunset view. It was all very cozy and extremely disturbing. Meanwhile, nostalgia changed flavors too. Instead of reminiscing about the past, people started pre-nostalgia. They'd get weepy about moments that hadn't happened yet. Remember when our daughter takes her first steps next June? Oh, that'll be beautiful. Grandparents knitted sweaters for unborn grandkids they already knew would hate them. The temporal soup thickened. In protest, a small faction known as the Chronoluddites emerged. Their slogan? Time is a one-way ride, not a streaming service. They wore analog watches and hosted retro parties where everyone guessed what would happen next, just for fun. No spoilers allowed. But the hardest part was this: death changed. When people could see their deaths, they got casual about it. Oh, I'm hit by a vending machine at 82. Good to know. Guess I can finally try parkour. Life insurance companies went bankrupt in weeks. Who needs a policy when you've got a personalized expiration date on a smartwatch? Some tried to cheat it. If I'm fated to die skydiving, I'll never go skydiving. But then fate got cheeky. A man who avoided elevators for decades died when a piano fell down the stairs. Statistically improbable? Sure. Cosmically hilarious? Absolutely. Funerals were pre-planned with eerie detail. Play the 2037 remix of Bohemian Rhapsody, not the 2034 one. It's too synthy. People invited their future selves to eulogize them. Some even ghost-wrote their obituaries based on their upcoming personal branding strategies. One woman requested, "Please describe me as mysterious and probably part cyborg," even if it's not technically true. And as for religion, oh boy, every belief system suddenly had to wrestle with the reality that their afterlives were competing with verifiable previews of next Tuesday. "We know you saw heaven in that meditation vision, Todd," said one pastor nervously. "But have you considered that your timeline also shows you inventing scented glue?" Spirituality pivoted hard. A new wave of future mystics emerged, interpreting timeline fluctuations as divine text. Their sermons? Part prophecy, part PowerPoint. Despite the chaos, or maybe because of it, people began to reclaim meaning, not from knowing what would happen, but why they cared. You could see your future wedding, but it still didn't tell you how your heart would feel in that moment. You could glimpse your career arc, but it couldn't answer whether you'd love it, loathe it, or abandon it for goat farming in Portugal. The images were vivid, but the emotions remained blurry, like watching your life through someone else's glasses. And that was the loophole. People realized the future may be written, but it's not lived until you feel it. And feelings are stubbornly unpredictable, like cats or politicians with Twitter accounts. So the journey wasn't dead. It was just meta. We became aware that we were aware, self-conscious about our own destinies. A little ridiculous, yes, but gloriously human. With every glimpse into the future, society got a little more absurd and a lot more philosophical. Job interviews, for example, no longer relied on resumes. Why bother when HR could check if you'd be promoted, fired, or secretly overthrow the company in a hostile takeover at the Christmas party 7 years from now? Interviews became awkward clairvoyant rituals. So I see here that in 2036 you become a meme. Can you elaborate on how that aligns with our brand values? Political campaigns? Rewritten entirely. Candidates didn't run on policy, they ran on prophecy. According to the 2040 timeline, I remain only mildly corrupt, while my opponent turns into a lizard person lobbyist for Martian billionaires. Voters didn't ask what a candidate stood for. They asked, what's your most entertaining future scandal? The less plausible, the more popular. Even sports became a timeline management exercise. Bookmakers were replaced with fate brokers. You could no longer bet on who wins the World Cup, but you could bet on who thinks they'll win, gets arrested before the final, or experiences a poetic injury involving a rogue vending machine and a goose. Fantasy leagues were now precognition leagues, where winning required knowing which team almost won but tragically didn't. Romance became wildly unromantic. Dating apps now included a future compatibility score, determined by how many alternate timelines ended in joint retirement or epic flameouts involving IKEA furniture and mutual ghosting. The worst part? You could literally see how your partner would age, and how you'd both argue about thermostat settings for the next 50 years. Some found comfort in this strange transparency. Others found horror. One man proposed marriage after seeing his future wife say no, then saw another version where she said yes, then another where she said, "I'm seeing your clone brother." The poor guy got lost in multiversal anxiety and now lives with a goldfish named Destiny, refusing to date unless she swipes right in all 47 timelines. And then came the corporate time monopolies. The powerful didn't just use future vision, they patented it. A few tech companies started claiming ownership over specific events. Sorry, you can't use that 2091 beach wedding. We've licensed that to a Kardashian. Some people were forced to change their own futures because they infringed on copyrighted outcomes. One guy had to delay his heart attack because Disney was producing a mini-series about cardiac distress in 2080. As always, the black market blossomed. Underground future hackers sold illegal time peaks. Want to know who wins the next 10 Nobel Prizes? Or when your neighbor trips over a garden gnome and yells something profoundly poetic? People started trading tiny future moments like baseball cards. I'll give you my cousin's lottery win in exchange for 2 near-death experiences and a canceled wedding. Meanwhile, philosophers entered a golden age of existential migraines. If you know what will happen, does free will still matter? Can fate be negotiated like rent in San Francisco? Is time just a scam invented by ancient sun watchers to sell calendars? Some went full nihilist. Why do anything if it's all predetermined? Others turned hyper-optimist. The future sucks, so let's party now and hope we glitch into a better timeline. A few joined a fringe movement called the Timeline Rebooters. Their goal? To make decisions so chaotic, so utterly unpredictable, they shattered Destiny's script. Think marrying your ex's tax accountant while base jumping into a vegan sushi festival. But beneath the chaos, a strange kind of peace emerged. Knowing the future didn't erase the present. In fact, it made it sharper, more precious. You'd still cry when your child said their first word, even if you'd practiced not crying for weeks. You'd still feel joy in a sunrise, knowing the weather algorithm scheduled it just for you. And you'd still be surprised, because no vision, no matter how detailed, could ever capture the sheer mess and magic of being alive right now. So we looked forward. We laughed at fate. We cried when it still hurt. We rebelled not with guns, but with awkward hugs and impulsive karaoke and naps during meetings we knew wouldn't matter. Because seeing the future never stopped us from being human. It just reminded us how ridiculous, resilient, and wonderfully weird that humanity really is. And yet, for all the surveillance of destiny, all the scrolling through decades like episodes of a very slow-burn Netflix show, there was one thing the future never quite gave us. Satisfaction. Sure, we saw the outcomes. We knew the who, the what, the when. But the why remained frustratingly elusive. A man might witness his own funeral attended by thousands, yet never know if they mourned him or just came for the free catering. A woman could see herself win a Nobel Prize, but never be sure whether it was for science, literature, or an unfortunate bureaucratic mix-up involving a dog and a time-stamped sandwich. That was the curse of knowing what comes next. You saw the destination, but the journey still required sweat, doubt, and 5 consecutive therapy appointments. You could fast forward, but not feel. You could predict, but not live. And so, inevitably, humanity did the most irrational, poetic thing imaginable. We turned it off. Not everyone, of course. Some clung to their timeline subscriptions like it was the last season of a prestige drama. But more and more, people chose mystery. They blocked their own futures. They made decisions without previews. They let dates be awkward, careers meander, endings surprise. They embraced life with all its glorious unpredictability, as if the fog of not knowing was actually a form of freedom. Religions were reborn, not in the name of gods, but in the worship of uncertainty. There were temples to chaos, shrines to spontaneity, pilgrimages to places where nothing had ever been forecast, and every weather report ended with honestly, who knows? And through it all, through the ebb and flow of time curiosity and destiny fatigue, humanity found its strange rhythm again. We invented new proverbs. The future is overrated. Even a psychic needs a coffee break. If you know the ending, write a better one anyway. We sang songs that ended differently every time. We told stories where the heroes didn't always win, but always tried. We raised children who didn't ask, "What will I be when I grow up?" but instead, "What won't I try?" In the end, the greatest gift the future gave us was the chance to stop staring at it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only glimpse we ever really needed. If you've made it this far without peeking ahead, congratulations. You've survived a future-drenched world with your curiosity intact. And if you enjoyed this strange little ride through the timelines, do us a favor. Like, comment, and subscribe to What If Horizons. Or don't. Maybe you already did in one version of reality. Or maybe in another, you're sharing this episode with your pet llama, who runs a podcast club. Either way, let's meet again, same time, next episode, in whatever future you feel like writing. Because the future is yours. Weird, wild, and wonderfully unwritten.